Car heat off.
Carburetor heat is here. Verify it's off.
Prime is required.
This is the second flight today. It's pretty warm out, so we'll try no primer.
Master switch on, which is both or the first
Yeah,
one?
both sides is considered a master switch.
Electric fuel pump on.
Fuel pump is here. Turn it on. As you do that, it's good to make sure that the fuel pressure increases. Bring it off.
What's up?
Bring it off. If you read the checklist, check fuel pressure, then off. Okay, so moving forward from here about a 1/4 inch.
Controller area clear.
Does it confirm no one's standing in front of you? Okay, then yell your window clear prop.
Clear prop!
Then with your feet on the brakes.
And on the top part.
Very good. And your hand on the throttle and your left hand on the ignition key.
Okay.
Just crank it. Once it fires. Bring the power to 1,000. The tachometer, increase the power to 1,000.
Anti-collision lights on.
Strobe lights and the beacon for the tail.
Collision light on at night. Oil pressure check.
Yeah. Pressure here, you just want it above the red rating point.
Flaps retract.
Don't steer like a car, keep your hands on your lap. Then we'll check the brakes here. So we'll apply brakes. Good. And then we'll taxi up to this little bump and we'll get our taxi clearance. Right rudder, watch your left wing here. See there's a plane right next to you. And your right wing, watch it on the fence. Very good. This is a hold short line, right? Because we're on a non-movement area. On the other side of the line is a movement area or a taxiway, so we need a taxi clearance. Anytime you're stopped on the ground, keep the power at 1,000. Close to ground, Cherokee 303, go through, go stay 27 right with standby. What's the ATIS? Anyone? Anyone?
Nancy, or November.
Cherokee 40963, Gillespie ground, runway 27 right, taxi via Bravo and Delta.
Ground, Cherokee 303, go through, go stay 27 right with November.
Cherokee 303, Gulf Sierra, Gillespie ground, runway 27 right, taxi via Bravo and Delta.
27 right 300. So via Bravo and Delta, our instructions, this is taxiway Bravo. So we're in taxiway Bravo, make a right on Delta. So power. You need a little more to get moving. And once you get moving, you can bring a little power out. Just nice and small control inputs on the power. Same thing on the controls.
And Epic Fuel, Posey Bravo to Golden State.
Epic Fuel, Roger, via Bravo back to Golden State.
Then I'll give you the checklist. Good. 1,000 on the RPM for now. We'll open it up to the pre-takeoff run-up, and I'll give you that. If you bring this window closed, the air doesn't bounce around the walls, and it's easier to hear on the radios.
Brakes set.
So brakes, just set them with your feet here. And if this brake worked, we would set it here. But sometimes, again, it works and it doesn't. So, there. Set them both.
Fuel selector.
So confirm it's on the fullest tank. They were both at the tab, so you should confirm by looking at the fuel selector valve that's red and pointing to the right. You're on the right tank.
Okay. Throttle smoothly to 2,000 RPMs.
Yeah, so advance it forward so you get 2,000 on the RPM. Tachometer is here, right? So that 20 is 2,000 by 100. Good.
Start taking take it back down or leave it there?
You leave it there.
Engine instruments with the green.
Yep. Oil temp, oil pressure, green and green.
Carb heat. Check RPM drop.
So bring the carburetor heat on, and as you do that, you should see a small drop in the RPM because you're bringing in hotter air, which is less dense, which is less combustible, so it will loss of power. Then bring it off and so you look for a rise. Good.
Magnetos, check maximum drop, 125 RPM.
Yep, so we're checking our ignition system, right? The engine mags, you do that with the starter key. Very carefully, move it 2 clicks to the left to check the right. Do not turn it to the off position, so only 2 clicks. 1, 2. Now move it to the right, 2 clicks. Good, there's a small drop. Now we have to check, we just checked the right wing, now we're checking the left, so bring it to the left. Small drop, there's about 100 on the RPM, that's fine, back to both. You only want to leave it off both for about 3 to 5 seconds max.
Close the gas at curve.
Vacuum.
This is the suction gauge for our gyroscopic instruments, right? Should be 4.5 to 5.1, 5.0.
Oil temp and pressure within green. Throttle 1000.
So slowly bring it back, reduce it to 1000.
Carb heat off, cold.
Yep.
Indicator panel, press to set.
The annunciator panel, which is here. Press to test is here. Usually that vacuum light will light up too. That just tells us we have a problem associated with the vacuum pump, the alternator, or the engine or oil temp. Okay, that's why it's a good idea to keep this in your cross-check, in your scan of your instrument.
Flight instruments, check and set.
So we'll start our flight instruments, right? Airspeed indicator should read 0 unless we're pointing to a really strong headwind. It'll read the speed of the wind. Attitude indicator tells us what?
If we're level.
Pitch and bank information, left, right, up, down. Blue is the sky, brown is the ground. The white line represents the horizon. And you just line up the wings to the orange guys to the horizon. The altimeter should read within 75 feet of fuel elevation with the correct altimeter, which we got off the ATIS, which is 29084. So it's about 40 feet high. It's fine. It's a good check. VSI. It's not a required instrument. Should read 0 on the ground. Gives us a rate of climb in feet per minute, or rate of descent in feet per minute. Heading indicator doesn't have magnets in it like a compass does to seek magnetic north, so you got to look at your compass, which is about 305. Whatever the compass reads, you push and twist till you get 305 there. Turn coordinator should show level on level ground. The ball should be in the inclinometer, and you should notice a little bit of fluid in there. Those are your instruments.
Okay. Flight controls, free and correct.
Yep, so the controls just kind of go backwards, forwards as you turn left and right is what I do, just to make sure nothing is restricting the movement. And then do a left turn, and as you do that, look at your wing. So left turn, left aileron comes up, hold that, look at the right wing, right aileron is down. Opposite, so right aileron, up, left, down,
okay.
Now neutral. Look behind your right shoulder at the elevator as you pull all the way aft on the controls. Elevator goes up, push forward, elevator goes down. Very good.
Where are we at here?
Number 14.
Flaps is required.
So this is a normal takeoff, 0 degrees of flaps. If we're doing like a short field or soft field, we want to get airborne right away, we'd add 25 degrees of flaps.
Okay. Trim, rudder, and elevator set.
Yep, so we have a trim tab here to relieve the pressures the pilot feels in the controls here. There's an N, which is in the middle, it's really hard to read. And there's a white tab. So you just bring this guy back to neutral. Just right in the middle.
Okay.
Very good.
Seats, check, tracks, and locked.
Yep, just make sure your seat is locked in its track by moving backwards and forwards.
Restraint system fastened.
Yep, so you have your lap belt on. Don't forget your shoulder harness over your left shoulder. And it just kind of clicks into this guy right here. Kind of put it flush and then pull it. That rewind gets stuck sometimes. Good. Did it click? You gotta pull it till it clicks. There you go.
Door and window closed and latched.
Yeah, I'll get that in a second. It's really hot.
Mixture set.
So rich for normal takeoff.
Okay. Electric boost pump.
Yeah, which is our fuel pump. So go ahead and turn the fuel pump on like you did for start. Good.
Selector, fuel selector.
It's still on the right. Engine gauges.
Engine gauges verify.
So one more time, green and green.
radios on and transponder.
Yep, so we got 1210 or 120.7, which is the tower. The volume is up, and we got on COM 2. Okay. Transponder goes to altitude. So bring this transponder to altitude.
Okay, 4 Zulu Foxtrot, hold short of runway 27 left.
Anti-collision lights
on.
They're already on. On hazier days and busier days, I always take off with the landing light on. So you can turn the landing light on. Lights, camera, action, that will help you remember. So lights, landing light, camera is the transponder, right? So we're identified on the radar. And action would be fuel pump. And we'll get our takeoff clearance, okay? So you're just going to taxi onto the runway. And you're going to line up the nose with the center line. Once the nose is lined up with center line, you're going to have your left hand here, and your right hand's going to be on the throttle.
Okay.
Just advance the throttle nice and smoothly forward until it's set, okay? I'll take this for you. And then just keep it on the center line with the rotor pedals. I'll verify our power is set, our instruments are green, and I'll call out your airspeed for you, okay? And so right around 60, 65 knots, we're just going to nice and slowly start rotating, okay? And again, once you're airborne, that nose, that prop is spinning very quickly, so it's generating a lot of lift. The nose wants to come up on its own, so you don't need excessive back pressure here. I encourage you to push forward a little bit, just enough to lower the nose to see the center line. Okay? That's all we're going to do. And then, any questions before we go?
No.
Are you excited?
Yes.
Are you nervous? Scared? Correct, tires, Turkey 303 Golf 027 right, straight out departure.
Turkey 3 Golf 0, go 2 time Roman 27 right, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff 27 right, 3 Golf 0. Okay, so power. We're going to just taxi out onto the runway. Don't steer like a car.
Turkey 963, contact SoCal departure.
Contact SoCal, Turkey 963. Close to tower, Cessna 3096 Juliet, SAT 279.
Clear the approach end, so look off your right side to make sure no planes are landing. Here comes the runway.
And November 96 Juliet,
arrows
takes up to Ocean
point right at the center line.
Taxi up to hold short 27 right, 9 Echo.
Is neutral.
906 Juliet.
Left hand on the control. Right hand on the throttle. Go ahead, add full power whenever you're ready. Good. So power set, instruments are green, airspeed's alive, you have 40 knots. Maintain center line, the rudder's not steering like a car. 50 knots. 60 knots. Start lifting off. Nice little big back pressure. Good, just nice and slowly. Very nice. Good, now push forward on the controls just a little bit. A little more to bring the nose down. Can you see the center line?
No.
Lower the nose. See the center line now?
Yes.
Okay. Once that extended center line is gone, just hold this heading that's letting you track out on it as we use the pitch to control our airspeed, right? So you want to climb out at VY, which is 80 knots, and you're indicating about 65. So we'll lower our nose just a little bit. You keep the nose about 2 inches below the horizon. That generally works for about an 80 knot climb out, okay? How you doing?
Good.
Good? No, are you having to use a lot of back pressure here? So if you take your hands off the wheel, what is the nose doing? Looks like it wants to climb, right?
Yeah.
So you got to use all this forward pressure to keep it below the horizon. So if you take your right hand, you move it to the trim wheel and move it forward, it's on top, right there. So move it forward, watch what happens to the nose. You can trim it up for a nice 80 knot climb out, so you don't have to basically it will be hands free. You understand how that works?
Yes.
It's kind of trial and error. You still want to use your flight control to pitch for 2 inches below the horizon, and then just trim the aircraft until you don't feel that pressure anymore. So we'll need a little more nose down trim. So move this forward just about 1/4 of an inch. Right about there. If you take your hands off the wheel, the plane will fly itself. So you don't have to have a death grip white knuckle on it, okay? Fingertip pressure is all you need. These things are designed to fly. You're just helping it along. Tower 3 Golf 0, frequency change.
3 Golf 0, frequency change.
Okay, at a safe altitude, we'll bring our fuel pump off. So 1,000 feet or more above the ground, go ahead, bring it off. As you do that,
Off contact, SoCal departure.
cross-check your fuel pressure in your engine instrument.
122.010.
Stay on the left side and bring the nose down 2 inches below the horizon.
10-3 for Mike Early, crossing approved your discretion.
At your 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock position is a big open space. That's Montgomery Tower. We're going to point the nose right on it.
Left remaining in the pattern.
Roll the wings level.
7257 Tango Montgomery Tower, runway 28 left, line up and wait. Is this going to be touch and goes or full set taxi line?
Touch and go.
That's right, Tango, runway 28 left, line up and wait.
Line up and wait, 28 left.
Montgomery Tower, good afternoon, Turkey 303, Gulf Sierra, California, climb to 1,700 for westbound transition to the VFR corridor.
303 Gulf Sierra, Montgomery Tower, west transit, approved Montgomery altimeter 298.6.
304.
Next correction, Montgomery altimeter 298.4.
304.
Wind 22011. That's 57 Tango, follow the upwind Cessna to the
So
pattern,
just keep the nose, you see the field right off the right tip of the nose?
7 Tango, clear 285.
Open space?
Yes.
Country for
That's Montgomery Airport.
Okay.
Clear, touch and go, 2 right, 3 for Mike.
We're going to climb up to 4,000 feet. So if you look at your altimeter, we're climbing through 2,000 almost. So we got 2,000 feet to go. It's a little bumpy. It's always bumpy over Cowell, so just kind of accept it and kind of just keep the wings level, okay?
3 Gulf Sierra, traffic 12 o'clock and 2 miles eastbound. I'll indicate person at 2,900 at Cessna.
3 Gulf Sierra, traffic inside.
Wind 21010.
So the Cessna at 12 o'clock and above it's 1,000 feet. That's opposite direction, and there's also one off our left side. They're not a factor, so don't worry about them. You know where you are?
Yes.
So you can see Lake Murray at the left wing tip. If you want to take that off, you can if it's bothering you.
No.
Okay. There's Miramar, right? Montgomery's right off our nose, so we're going to fly over Montgomery as we climb to 4,000 and then make a left turn.
Short Niner. 4 Delta, runway 28 left, third touch and go.
Clear, touch and go, 28 left, 4 Delta.
That's the 4 Delta, after touching you, you can expect right close traffic.
Alright, right close traffic after takeoff, 2 left, 4 Delta.
57 Tango, you're following a Cessna down, ahead, runway 28 left, third touch and go.
57 Tango, we'll follow the Cessna, 28 left, clear, touch and go.
3 for Mike, runway 28 right, clear touch and go.
Clear, touch and go, 28 right, 3 for Mike.
Wind 24012.
So if you're constantly trying to pitch for that 80 knots, just find about 2 inches below the horizon with the nose, because you're going to be up and down, up and down, up and down. So if the airspeed stabilize at one constant attitude, do you see the horizon? It's kind of hard to see today,
I can see it.
but the nose should be right about here. Then let's hold this pitch attitude, and then give your airspeed indicator cross-check. So now that we're out of the traffic pattern, we should be doing what's called a cruise climb. So you're not pitched for 79 knots, which is your VY climb speed. It's more 85 to 90 knots because the nose will be lower. And that does 3 things for you: better visibility, better engine cooling, and a little bit faster ground speed.
Wind 2109er. The
Cruise climb. Can you see our downtown? And then to the right of it, you'll see Lindbergh. Do you see the runway?
Yes.
We're going to fly over the approach engine.
1210111.
So we're going to fly on the left side of it. And we're going to keep our altitude above 3,300, but below 47. It's the VFR corridor. Because we basically got a tunnel that they cut out right through the Class Bravo, so we don't need a clearance. I'm just going to turn on my
right downwind for 28 right.
Don't find out the front to make right close traffic now.
Right, 28 right, 524 Delta.
Country for Mike, follow that Cessna turning right cross and ahead. Mike, I've got the test in sight. This will be 4 knots. Test before Mike, right there. 4 knots, only 2, right? Click touching down.
Go ahead, go left.
Time to run, that's off. And
Point the nose on the left side of the runway.
Right, to land.
If you don't see it, it's fine.
Before Mike.
So pointed towards the left side of the runway?
Look up there. Juliet, 805, exiting Miramar from midport. 10-7, start delivering every tower right. Proceed southbound for left traffic to midport, landing at ground west, wind 22014, altimeter 10 or 84. 7-2, Juliet.
Good, you can roll the wings level here. You know, keep the climb coming to about 3,800 will be fine. Remember, you want to be able to see in front of you, so you can't really see in front of you because that nose is so high, right about there, 2 inches below the horizon. Good, and we're going to lead our level off by about 50 feet because that's 10%. So start bringing the nose down for about 4 inches below the horizon, nice and slowly, which is right about there. And I did that 50 feet before we got to 3,800. It's 10% of our climb rate, called leading your level off. Then we have full power set still, right? So we're just going to need a little bit more forward pressure to keep the plane from climbing. Cross-check your altimeter and your VSI. This should indicate 0. This should be moving. Then as your airspeed builds up to about cruise, which is between 100 and 110 knots, depending on what the winds and the weather are, we'll bring the power back so we're not redlining it. So we'll bring it back to cruise around 23 to 2400. And as you do that, you got to add forward pressure. Because you're gained 100 feet. You're still climbing. Very good. And then what we'll do now is we'll retrim the aircraft because you have to have all this forward pressure. If you let go of the plane for a second, so take your hands off the wheel. See how if you have that forward pressure to keep the nose down. This is where the trim wheel comes in, really nice. And if you move it forward, remember, forward brings the nose down. If you move it backwards, it brings the nose up. And you just kind of trim it so you feel that pressure being relieved. Then you can take your hands off, just kind of trial and error, and see what the nose is doing. It's pretty much level flight for you, right?
Yes.
It's like having an autopilot or cruise control.
Clear heading to 310, second, Lindbergh, southbound, Northern Bay, 3,900.
Oh, the visibility sucks today. You can kind of see the bay off the left tip. We want to fly right in the middle of it. If we get on the other side of this peninsula or the shore, then we're going to be in some airspace, which we don't want to be in. So right about here, roll the wings level, very nice. What we'll do on your next intro, whoever you're with, you'll probably practice some like one performance maneuver, so maybe some steep turns, more use of the rudder, power on stall, power off stall, something like that if you want to see it. 4,000, so we're getting another 100 feet. Just don't get above 4,700. See Coronado off your right. I don't know if you can see Hotel Del yet. Just see where Coronado's written in the sand there. Just to the left of that. So what we're going to do once we get to the south end of the bay is very shortly you'll see Brown Field, and we'll turn left to parallel it on the left side. And if you want, we can do a touch and go there. If not, we can do that another time.
Want to try a barrel roll?
Sure. Go ahead. You know how to do one? If not, I'll show you.
No, you can take over and do it. I want to make a puke.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, twice a week, 2 o'clock.
Parachute jumps in progress 6 miles northeast and 3 miles east of Brownfield below 14,000.
You can start to descend down to
Information for Southern California is available on
2,500.
Fly watch and flight service frequencies.
So to descend, it's a
Advise on
combination of four things.
information.
Pitch, which you have. Power, you want to bring a little power out, depending on how fast you want to go.
Ground tower information.
Trim and rudder.
2153 Zulu weather. Wind 270 at 8. Visibility 10. Sky clear. Temperature 19er.
And if you look, it's really hard to see, but I'm just going to give you a heading to fly. So fly heading 090.
Visual approaches in use. Landing runways 26.
So turn left to 090.
Initial contact of any intersection departure request.
I just brought more power out.
Parachute jumps in progress 6 miles northeast and 3 miles east of Brownfield below 14,000. Hazardous weather information for Southern California is available on HIWAS, Fly Watch, and Flight Service frequencies. Advise on initial contact, you have information Zulu.
So you notice in a climb we were about 2 inches below the horizon. Hang on.
2153 Zulu weather.
This would be 6 inches for descent.
Visibility.
This is good. You can roll the wings level here. We'll do our approach and landing checklist, which I'll just verbalize it for you, but you want the fuel pump on, so you can do these things well as I call them out. Fuel pump goes on, landing light, make sure to rich, and seatbelts. And we'll get our sequence in for landing at Brown. Do you see the field yet? It's like up here to your right at your 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
There it is.
Right in the middle of these two clouds. Why don't you just point it at it?
Right.
Yep, we're going to tracking about a mile from the runway, and then we'll turn left for parallel it. So that's our right downwind. Ground Tower Turkey 303, Gulf Sierra to the Vista power plant under 2,600 with Zulu for touch and go.
Turkey 303 Golf Sierra, Brown Tower, enter a right downwind for runway 26 left and report over the prison. Correction, report at beam the tower.
Right downwind 26 left, call you beam the tower as you go through.
Citation 6 Papa Charlie, contact SoCal departure, have a good flight.
Tower departure, good day. 6 Papa Charlie.
Your 5 X-ray Papa, SoCal approach is expected with a 2 or 3 minute delay from now.
There's just 5 X-ray Papa.
And we're going to level off here. As you level off, slowly bring up the nose for 4 inches and add power back to cruise, which is around 23 or 24.
Turkey 3 Golf Sierra, Charlie Hannah, 1 mile after the departure in, northwest bound 2,000 climbing to citation. And runway 26 left, cleared for touch and go, and then make left close traffic.
26 left, cleared to go traffic to the site, 3 Gulf Sierra. Do you see that citation, that jet?
Brown Tower, 6-1 uniform, jumpers away.
Picture 6-1 uniform, roger.
And we'll descend down to 1,500 feet, which is the traffic pattern altitude for Brown. And then we're going to just turn left to parallel the runway. It's called we're on a right downwind. And we're going to be landing on 26
Brown
left.
Tower, Hawker, X-ray Alpha, Alpha Sierra, Hotel, holding interior of 26 right, in sequence. Ready for the
descent, it's 3 things.
X-ray Alpha, Alpha,
Bring on a little bit of power, get the nose down as nice and slowly.
Next to the rear jet, you'll be number 2
Trim if you
for
need it.
departure.
And rudder.
Okay, we'll hold turn of 26 right, Alpha Sierra Hotel, thank you.
See how you're tracking into the runway? You want to be parallel. Good, so we'll level
Take
up.
off here, continue downwind, and I'll call your base train and be following the station here on a 3-mile final. Or disregard that, can you make a short approach?
3 Golf Sierra, affirmative.
Okay, tell you what, make a short approach, and runway 26 left, clear for touch and go.
Short approach, 2 Golf Sierra. This is a short approach for 27 left because he has someone on final. So we're just heading it right for the numbers, okay? So what we'll do, we're bringing a little bit more power out here. And we'll get in 10 or 15 degrees of flap. So go ahead, pull the flap lever up to a click once.
Keep the speed up, runway 26 right, clear to land, long
Then bring in
landing.
another click.
Clear it off for 26 right, clear to land, long landing, 6 uniform.
Take 6 uniform, Chadwick, about to cross the center line, 26 right is the Cherokee on close-in base for 26 left.
Slowing down to our final approach speed, which is 65 knots, okay? And we're just going to hustle up for this guy so he doesn't have to go around. And we'll start pointing it for the numbers of 26 left. And you can still fly here. Keep the nose coming down. Full flaps, so bring in another click of flaps. Very good. And we'll start lining it up for the center line of 26 left. These yellow chevrons we know are the threshold, which we can't land on. Slowly start lining it up. Very good. So a little right aileron. The winds are right down the center line, so you shouldn't have too much of a crosswind. You want to keep the nose coming down. About 10 feet above the ground if you're coming in with power. Usually just level off right about here and bring the power to idle. As you bring the power to idle, you just slowly bring up the nose. So it's about a ½ inch. That was a little flap. That's my fault. Then for our touching over, we're going to add full power. Center line. Don't steer like a car, please. Rudder pedals only. 65 knots. Start rotating. Back pressure. Very good. Climb out at 75, 80 knots. Good.
Brown Tower, Winnie 3833 Tango, we're holding short 26 right, we're ready to go.
3833 Tango, Brown Tower, other hold short, runway 26 right.
23 Tango, we'll hold short 26 right.
Your 5 X-ray pop on, departure fly heading 260 for radar vectors, and continue holding short at runway 26 right.
Departure heading 260 and holding short.
Take our left turn for the crosswind.
First up, X-ray pop on.
Bring it up for 80
And we'll
knots.
head out momentarily as soon as the traffic clears the runway. 33 off there, runway 26 left, clear for touch and go.
Clear to go 26 left, 3 Golf Sierra. Keep the nose up. You want to climb here, right? 80 knots. They're all square turns. Look over. You need to be looking around a little bit more. So if you look at the runway, this is the left crosswind. So we're going to turn our downwind. We're about a ½ mile to a mile from the runway. Downwind leg we know is parallel and opposite. Don't fly to Mexico. That's Mexico right over there.
Air 5 X-ray Papa, runway 26 right, cleared for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff 26 right, to 5 X-ray Papa.
And Hawker Alpha Sierra Hotel, continue holding short, SoCal approaches as expected about 3 or 4 more
And
minutes.
what we're doing is climbing up a pattern altitude.
Thank you, Alpha Zeta
I think 1,500 feet.
33 Golf Sierra, Contact Lake Turbulence, Solar 45 departing the right, wind 290 at 14.
3 Golf Sierra taps inside. So see the 26 in the L? That's our landing point. So once we're beam it, we're going to start configuring the aircraft for our approach. So power comes to around 1800, nice and slowly. So we're below 103 knots, which is VFE. We'll add 1 knot to flaps, and then slowly, just nice and gradually start pitching for 200 to 300 feet per minute. Okay, the field elevation here is 500 feet, so add 600 feet to that, that's 1100. At 1100 feet and about 45 degrees off the center line is when you can make your left base.
Clear for takeoff.
So all your turns should be nice and square.
5 X-ray Papa, thanks for patience, contact SoCal departure.
And right about now, we'll start turning in.
Go to SoCal.
On base, we'll start slowing through 85 knots with 25 degrees of flap, so add flaps. Don't level off, just keep this descent coming nice and gradually. Wings will come level, and about 30 to 45 degrees off that center line. Left turn to join it, right? And as the descent is still coming in, full flaps now to start flowing through 65. So we just needed, so see how you're leveling off here? If the plane does something you don't want it to, you have to command it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you need to do to land? Probably push the nose down, right? and bring out some power because you're extremely high. And then readjust the trim. So we need all this forward pressure to keep our descent coming. Now we got all this extra speed because we were too high. Just nice and small control corrections, okay? You're overflying the airplane a little bit. To get our final approach speed back, we're just going to add a little bit of power because we got low, right?
Yeah.
So we'll just bring it to the ground nice and slowly. We can't land on the threshold, so we are holding about 60, 65 knots, right?
Germany 33 Tango squawk VFR.
Small reduction of power, 10 feet off the ground. Just relax. Just don't be in too big of a hurry to get the plane on the ground. Level off, power to idle, then as we sink, we'll slowly start bringing the nose up. We'll leave 25 degrees flaps in, full power. Very good. Climb out at 63 knots. Notch of flaps comes out.
And Money 33 Tango, if you would offset to the right to 30 degrees for jet traffic departing behind you.
33 Tango, we'll go.
Dr. X-ray Alpha Alpha Sierra Hotel, thank you for waiting. Runway 26 right, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, runway 26 right, Alpha Sierra Hotel, thank you.
So it's been upstairs, we get a right crosswind departure table.
We off here, no sir, tell you what, just make a left turn now and you can make a left climbing turn overhead the airport. That's jet traffic departing right, that's why.
There you go, sir, thank you. So let's make a left climbing turn to head back to Gillespie, okay?
Okay.
Again, don't forget about the trim, so you need all this back pressure, right? I just trimmed it up for you. See how it's a lot easier to initiate that climb? So we'll just keep the left turn coming, and we're just going to climb over the field here, because he's departing.
33 Golf, so you can just cross overhead midfield at or above 1,500.
At above 153 Golf, thanks for your help.
You're welcome. 23 Tango, can resume on navigation, traffic no factor, frequency change approved, have a good flight.
33 Tango, talk to you later.
And 33 Golf here, you can disregard the opposite, you can start your left turn now to cross the airport.
3 Golf here. Go ahead, turn left
here, hotel, thank you for waiting, contact SoCal.
360. Good day, you're welcome, Alpha Sierra Hotel. And we'll climb to 2,000 feet level off there. Just gotta run it back to Gillespie. That was a stall warning horn you heard, just a little bumpy. So what should our airspeed be in our climb out?
80?
Yep. What is it?
Less than 80.
Okay, how do we make us go faster if we don't have any more power available? Not by bringing the nose up, because you're about to stall it. So the nose comes down, that will increase your airspeed. Remember, a climb is about, just find the horizon. I know it's really difficult to see today, but just keep that nose about 2 inches there. If you're not sure if it's 2 inches, don't be pitching up and down to get 80 knots, because you're going to be all over the place. So it's find about 2 inches. If you think that's about 2 inches, hold it there. Wait for about 30 seconds to get your airspeed. What is it indicating?
80.
80, 85. Very good. Because what happens, for example, right now, if you wanted 80, you would see 85, and just by looking at the airspeed, then you would be pulling up. And then, okay, now I'm too slow, so I'm going to push down. And now I'm too fast, so I'm going to pull up. And now I'm too slow. And you're just going to be going like that, back and forth, back and forth. Whereas if you find a spot against the horizon with the nose, hold that there, and then cross-check your airspeed, then make an adjustment. It's more kind of trial and error. And you can level up. I'm going to go up to 2,200.
Central aircraft is based Alpha Current altimeter 2985. 33 Golf Sierra, frequency change approved. Have a good flight.
3 Golf Sierra, good day, sir.
Barriers and taxiway Charlie. Hazardous weather information for California coastal waters available on high watch, flight watch, and flight service frequencies. Advise on initial contact. You have Oscar.
So we'll level off here. So 4 inches below the horizon.
Westby Tower information, Oscar 2247 Zulu, wind 27010, visibility 10, sky clear, temperature 22, dew point 10, altimeter 2984. Eau Delta and visual approach is in use, landing and departing, runways 27 left and 27 right. Aircraft north and for runway 27 right, tower frequency 120.7. Aircraft south for runway 27 left, tower frequency 123.8. Notice airmen use caution for barriers and taxiway Charlie. Hazardous weather information for California coastal waters available on HiWatch, FlightWatch, and flight service frequencies. Advise initial contact. You have Oscar.
So just stay on the right side of this is Sweetwater Reservoir. To the contact, right? Stay on the right side of it. That'll keep us out of the class Bravo. It's really hard to see, but you'll see the water. Just apply this heading for now. So we got heading about 010, right?
North and for runway 27 right, tower frequency 120.7. Aircraft south for runway 27 left, tower frequency 123.8. Notice airmen use caution for barriers and taxiway Charlie. Hazardous weather information for California coastal waters available on HiWatch, FlightWatch, and flight service frequencies. Advise initial contact. You have Oscar.
Do you have any questions, Sean?
Nope. 643, short approach.
You're doing a good job.
Left, clear, touch and go.
643, short approach 27 left.
We'll start a nice descent down to 2,000 feet. So remember, for descent, so we were 4 inches below the horizon. The nose is going to be about 6 inches, somewhere around there, okay? It really depends on how fast you want to descend. But for the beginning practice purposes, about 6 inches. So we'll do 4 things. Pitch as you bring the power back. So reduce the power. Pitch, power, trim, and rudder. Make sure this ball stays in the center. I don't think I mentioned that to you. So if the ball's to the left, you need left rudder. If the ball's to the right of center, right rudder. You're uncoordinated. Can you still hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Delta Tower Turkey 303, Gulf Sierra, San Miguel out of 2000 with Oscar.
Turkey 303, Golf Sierra, left. The tower entered left base runway 27 left, report Interstate 8.
Left base, 27 left, Interstate 8, 303. Good, we can level off here. So as you level off, you're bringing up the nose now for that level flight, which is 4 inches. As you add power back to cruise around 2,300 or 2,400, add some more power. That will help you maintain your altitude. Very good. And then you could readjust the trim if you needed to. Okay. So, if you just maintain this altitude, right, you can see Gillespie off your nose. Kind of hard to see.
I can see it, the hangars.
Yeah. So the traffic pattern for 27 left is 1,200 feet, right? You're at 1,700 feet. I wouldn't get much lower this because we have one engine, right? There's not too many desirable spots to land. But you also want to plan your descent accordingly so that you're in the traffic pattern altitude by the time you get, if not in the airspace, at least 2 or 3 miles from the runway. Because if not, you're going to be very high and very close and very fast if you don't start planning. So we've already got the ATIS, we've got our clearance. All we need to do is the approach and landing checklist, which calls for the mixture to be rich, fuel pump on. I usually bring my landing light on, and seatbelts fastened, okay? That's all on your checklist. And he said to enter a left base for 27 left. If you just put the nose, see this road right here?
Yes.
At the very end of it, that blue metal rooftop? Put the nose right on that. That's going to put us on the perfect base for 27 left at this airport.
Okay.
And we're going to keep the descent coming now through 1,200 feet because we're entering the airspace. Let's get into the traffic pattern altitude because we're closer to the runway now. Just a nice gradual descent, Sean. So bring a little bit of power back. Remember, 4 things: pitch, power, trim, rudder. Descend around 300 to 500 feet a minute.
Sub 643, make short approach, runway 27 left, clear to land.
Clear to land, short approach, 8643.
Good. He said report Interstate 8. So if we get to the interstate and he hasn't cleared us to land, then we have to report. If he clears us to land before the 8th, then we don't need to report the interstate because he knows where we are and he hasn't forgotten about us. So let's try to be around 1,200 feet by the time we get to the interstate. So you're leveling off here. That's why we're not. So we'll bring out some power that will really help us descend.
We're at 1200.
Very good. Keep the descent.
3 Gulf Sierra, number 2 follows Satavri on the short approach. Runway 27 left, clear to land.
Clear to land 27 left, number 2, 3 Gulf Sierra. So we're getting a little low now. If you see the runways here, this is way too low. So we'll add some power and just level off. Remember, on the left base, you want to be about 600 to 700 feet above the airport elevation, which is 400 feet almost here. At 600 to 700 feet, is that? What is that? 1,000 to 1,100. They're about 300 feet low, which isn't your fault. I should have told you that. 45 degrees off the center line. We'll start turning to join center line. Easy on the power here because what's our final approach speed? Do you know?
No.
60 knots to 65 knots. We don't have any flaps in either. So
Number 643, turn left, Alpha, ground point 7, good day.
this thing slows down really nicely.
On the ground, 820.
Readjust the trim, and I'm aiming about 300 feet in front of those numbers. So my numbers
6 are Mike, base turn near the
are the landing point.
correction
Okay, so I have an aiming point which is about 300 feet in front of it. I'm going to bring this power to idle because we're about 20 knots fast.
Left base at our discretion, we'll report a beam at tower for 27 left, 60 Mike.
6 are Mike, I'm sorry.
Line it up on the center line.
On your discretion.
Yes, sir, left crosswind for 60 Mike.
65 knots. I'm not going to add any power. We're just going to float it in here. As we get closer to the ground, about a ½ inch up on the nose. Then we'll pull full aft on the, see if we can make this one, which we're not going to.
Oh. 730, did you see the King Air departing runway 27 right?
Roger, 730.
730, maintain visual with the King Air, caution white turbulence.
Roger, 730.
We'll just stop on the other side of this hole.
Cherokee 3 Gulf Sierra, contact ground point 7, good day.
3 Gulf Sierra, good day, sir. Good. We'll go to ground, 121.7.
Cessna 60 Mike, turning downwind, you have the King Air departing runway 27.
Then our checklist calls for the flaps to be retracted, so retract the flaps, just lead it all the way to ground, good. Fuel pump comes off, landing light comes off, transponder goes to standby, and we're on ground. Then I'll get our taxi clearance. Left to ground, Cherokee 303, Gulf Sierra, 27 left and Alpha for Golden State.
Cherokee 303 Gulf Sierra, left ground, taxi via Alpha 1, cross, runway 35.
Alpha 1 cross 35, 3 Gulf Sierra. So we're just going to take Alpha all the way to the end and make a left cross 35. So this is taxiway Alpha, all the way to the end and then a left. Cross the runway to Golden State. And you can give some power here. Do you have a nice time?
Yeah.
It's fun, huh? The takeoff's pretty simple. I won't say simple, but straightforward. Landing's going to be a little trickier at the beginning. And we'll just bring on back a little bit of power here. You're doing a much better job on the taxi.
So let's go drive it right in there.
If you're ever unclear or uncertain if you were cleared to cross a runway, don't cross it. Just stop and ask. Just say ground 3 Gulf Sierra, confirm, cross 35. They're more than happy to help you. Watch your left wing. 85 degrees off of that parking spot between those two wings. And then for shutdown, all you do is you bring the power to 1,000. Okay, then you bring the avionics off. We don't have an avionics master, so just bring off volume all the way. Same thing here. This comes to off. And then transponder goes to off. And then bring the mixture to cut off. Then once...
Nice job, Mark. Nice job.
Oh, thank you. Nice job, Sean. Sean was flying, not me.
Yes, he was. I'm impressed, Sean. Jealous as hell.
Now you're gonna cut my shirt off?
No.